Personally, I think that multiplying radicals is a lot easier than adding and subtracting. Okay? So, there is only one thing that you must make sure you have before you multiply. The radicals must have the same index, which means I need to have square root times square root, or cubed root times cubed root. If I have one that's square root and one that is the cubed root, you cannot multiply. Okay? It has to be the same index. So, take a look at this one. -4 square roots of 15 times negative square root of 3. Do they have the same index?
No.
Yes. Square root, square root. Okay, your index is not the number in front of it. This is a coefficient. So, I'm looking for this little number.
How do you know that this is square root?
When it is unwritten, it is a square root. So your index is always 2 if it's not written there. Okay? Oh yeah, that was the first day when you weren't here. Okay. So again, if there is not an index written, it is always the square root. Okay. So once you've identified that you can do this, here's your steps. Step 2 says multiply my coefficients. So we've got -4 times -1. That equals +4. Multiply the radicans. Those are the numbers underneath the square root. So 15 times 3 is 45. And now we simplify. So when I've multiplied, I've now have 4 square roots of 45.
That's it. That's all you do.
Okay, we need to simplify. Break down 45. What goes into 45? 5, and that leaves me with 9.
3.
3 and 3. 3 and 1. So what am I grouping in? 2's. So that 3 comes out front and multiplies with my 4. So we now have 12 square roots of 5. All I have left is a 5.
How would you do this with the factor tree?
Wait, can you go back over that again? How'd you get 12?
3 times 4, which you pull out front. And you already have a 4 out there. So if you would have done this factor tree, it's the same thing. 45 breaks down into 5 and 9. 5 is prime. 9 breaks down into 3 and 3. 3's are both prime. So this is 3 times 3 times 5. And I group in 2's. Okay. No, your 3 comes out front because you've circled them. So that still goes with your 4. And your 5 is what's left over that goes underneath.
So how about those 2 numbers?
What about what?
2 different numbers. Right here, like it feels like a 2 and a 5. Right there.
Yeah. You would just multiply them,
2
right?
and a 5. Like it feels 3, 3, 2, 5.
Yeah.
So then the 3 comes out front and your 2 and 5 would multiply together and go back underneath the square root.
Exactly. 15.
Yes. So what he's saying is if I would have broken this down, let me multiply that. So if this was 90, okay, this is what he's saying. If this was 90 and we broke this down into 9 and 10, 3 and 3, so these are both prime. 10 breaks down into 2 and 5. So if I would have finished with 2 times 3 times 3 times 5, I still can only group in 2's. So that goes out front and multiplies with the 4. So that's still 12. And then left over, I have a 2 and a 5. Well, 2 times 5 gives me 10. So back underneath the square root would be your 10 then.
So
Because
you
you
would
have
never
two
put
numbers
6
left over. Whatever is left over multiplies together and goes back underneath the radical.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Questions?
What
Good.
about with negative?
What about with what? Like negative square.
Because when you simplify, you.
Underneath the radical, if it's square root, they should not have a negative because you cannot take a negative. You can't take the square root of a negative number.
So would we have to, like, if they give us like, negatives to multiply, like, inside the bracket, or they just give us the.
They wouldn't give you that. The only way they could put negatives underneath the radical is if it's cubed root or fifth root or seventh root. You can only take an odd root of a negative number. And in that case, bring the negative out front and multiply what's out front with the negative and then factor the rest. So, yeah, so for instance, if you had like, so like if you had the cubed root of like 500, negative 500. Okay, I would automatically pull the negative out front, okay, and then I would break down 500. So that becomes 5 and 100, that's prime, that becomes 10 and 10, that becomes 2 and 5, this becomes 2 and 5. So then you've got 2 times 2 times 5 times 5 times 5. I'm grouping in threes. So you bring out the 5, and then back underneath the cubed root goes 4. Is that what you were asking? But they'll never give you a negative underneath the square root because you cannot take the square root of a negative number.
That long no.
Huh?
Where the 5 went. I said that.
Oh, that would make sense why you can't take the square root of negative. Like what they would do, cause like they would put on the outside and just add the negative to the.
That's why when we did the discriminant and you found out a negative number, that it was two imaginary solutions because you can't take the square root of a negative.
Makes
Listen, so if our numbers, what if we have, like, okay, let's say that after the prime factorization, we had 2 times 2, and like it's a square root, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5, would it just be like times 4?
Hold on. You said, so we're taking the square root, and you said when I factor, I get 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're grouping in twos.
We
So
multiply the first one by 4,
this
right?
brings a 2 out front. This brings a 2 out front. This goes back underneath. So then you finish 4 square roots.
Okay.
Wait, so when you group it, you just have to multiply it?
Yes.
If there's more than one group, but you bring out whatever number you have.
So each group brings out one of those. So this group of 2s brings out 1, 2. This group of 2s brings out 2, that second 2. If you bring out more than 1, you've got to multiply them together to get the final.
Same thing. Like if that would do it, if you're grouping in 3,
So like, all right, hold on. These are good questions, so I don't mind. All right, so let's say we're doing the cubed root, and when I factor, I end up with like 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3.
No.
Times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, let's just say you broke it all down and these are your factors. This tells me I group in threes. So this groups, this groups, this groups. So this brings a 2 out front. This brings a 3 out front. This brings a 5 out front. So out front, you've got 2 times 3, which is 6, times 5, which is 30. And then back underneath the cubed root then is 3 times 5, which puts 15. And that's where you would finish.
So if it's a negative inside, right, you said that you would just pull it out into the front when you're done because you can't have a negative.
I think that was so extra unnecessary.
Right,
It really
seriously.
was, like, that was so
Alright,
irrelevant.
What's our next page? So that page clues in on 113, and we're gonna do our little booklet.
Oh my
Oh.
Yo, I really want to know my swim point.
I ran away from you there.
What? Hey, bro. Oh my god.
Done.
Miss Smith, have you seen my drink? Someone took it.
It's right.
I'm sorry.
Look at it.
Bro.
I know.
What you thought I was talking about?
My drink, someone took it.
The drink disappeared.
Yo, I'll fix it.
So let me know if he's on Friday.
What happened?
But Jessica was that.
You don't have any.
No, not right now. We're not gonna stop what I'm doing because we're working ahead. Just check it when we get there. All right. Open up your book.
No bucket.
Your book. Okay. So again, when you multiply, the first thing you need to do I have the same index? Yes. Okay. So now we multiply our coefficients. 3 times 1. And then underneath the square root is 12 times 6.
72.
Okay. So now let's simplify. 72 breaks down into 8 and 9 is what I heard first. So we're going to go with that. 8 and 9.
4 and 2, 3 and 3.
4 and 2.
Oh, I wasn't doing it.
3 and 3. If you do it the other way, just do it the other way. Make sure all your numbers match mine when you're finished. 2. And this breaks down into 2 and 2. So this means that my factors are 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. We're grouping in 2s. Okay, so one of these, this 2 comes out front. This 3 comes out front. Don't forget though, I also have this 3 that was already there. So all of these have to go together. What you're pulling out front and what's already there. So that gives me 18. Square roots, and what's left over is just a 2. That's your answer. We can tell.
Me either. I didn't. I thought
That's what I heard.
Why you taking pills?
Wait, I was thinking,
You know it.
don't
my dad.
What do you want me to do? There is so much conversation going on because we cannot handle just focusing on a lesson ever. It drives me insane. I've got to hear 50 other thousand conversations going on when I'm trying to teach you something, and then I've got 50,000 questions because you can't focus on one thing. You got to figure it out. If you think your professors when you get to college are going to do that, they're going to be like, sucks to be you, should have paid attention, figure it out on your own. They ain't playing this game. And come senior year, your senior year teachers are not going to play this game either. Can I multiply these two?
Yeah.
Yes. What's my coefficient of each one?
1.
1. So we don't even need to worry about it. If they're both 1, it's not going to change my coefficient. So now, underneath the square root, 20 times 20 times x squared times x. So this is actually the square root of 400 x to the third. Okay, so we need to break down 400. 2 and 200. 2 and 100. 2 and 50. 2 and 25. 5 and 5. And 5 and 1. Okay. I also like the birthday cake method because I don't have to rewrite it to circle. Okay. So now we're grouping in 2s. So 1, 2, 2 groups of 2s, and a group of 5s. So do I have any numbers to put back underneath that square root? No, everything comes out front. So out front is 2 times 2 times 5. Okay, don't forget 2. I have 3 x's that I have to figure out what to do with. Don't lose that variable. So one of my x's come out front because I can circle it, and the other one goes back underneath.
It makes it seem easy when we do it, but then we do it by ourselves, it gets complicated.
Yes.
I didn't put the X in there. Oh, I see what I did.
You dropped 420 instead of 200. Yep. That's why you lost those numbers. Okay. Uh-oh.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Look, way too far.
goodness.
Oh no!
No,
What? No!
I need to quit.
Wait, you skipped the page.
You skipped the
I
page.
skipped the page?
Yeah.
Oh,
Look
man.
at this stress me out.
I wasn't ready for that.
I was like, where you?
Oh, okay. I jumped to the hard stuff.
You went too far.
I went too far. Oh my. Okay. Again, my coefficients for this one are 1. So we don't have to handle them. But underneath the square root, we're going to multiply 15 times 10 and then multiply n squared times n to the third. So we're technically taking the square root of 150 n to the 5th. So 150, 5, and 30. 3 and 10. 2 and 5. 5 and 1. So what goes out front? The 5. Even though they're not side by side, I still have 2 of them. So this 5 comes out front.
You could always have the other way too, right?
Okay, the 5 comes out front. What goes back underneath? 6. Remember, you've got a 3 and a 2 left over, and 3 times 2 gives me 6. Okay, we also have to deal with these n's, which is why I left some space. You got 5 n's. Okay, So I've got n squared out front because I've got 2 groups of them that come out front and 1 n that goes underneath.
Can we?
What is
Okay. Before we jump into this, because y'all are like, oh crap.
No, for real.
Oh, what's going on, Miss Kids? I can't do this.
I can't.
Period.
Quit my life every
No
day.
Kapalapa.
No Kapalapa.
I'm going to deal with
Okay.
everything.
No.
If I gave you this, what would you do?
I would distribute the X.
Right.
You would distribute this X. So, X times X.
X squared plus 2X.
He's gonna get a marker for that.
X times 2.
2X.
That's what we're going to do here.
Oh, so how do we do that?
Yeah, bro.
I'm scared.
Chill.
Feel.
Okay. So, we're going to distribute 5 times the square root of 3. Okay.
5.6.5. It's 6.5.
Oh,
I'm just
Chill.
playing. I'm just
what? Huh?
playing.
Okay. So, there is no square root with your 5, right?
Right.
So that makes 5 the coefficient, or just a number. So what am I multiplying 5 by? 1. So when I distribute this, this is 5 square roots of 3. It's really easy to do a square root times just a number. That number multiplies by the coefficient in front of your square root. That's it. Okay? So, for instance, if I gave you the square root, if I gave you 2 square roots of 2, and inside of here I gave you 3. And you're multiplying that. That's 6 square roots of 2. This always multiplies against this if it's just a number. Your number multiplies against your coefficient. Okay. Plus. Now I need to multiply the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Square root of 9. Because 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. Can I simplify 5 square roots of 3?
Here.
No.
No.
No. Square root of 3 doesn't break down. It's already simplified. But what's the square root of 9?
3.
5 square roots of 3. You said 9 breaks down into 3 and 3. Well, then I group them in 2s. When I group them, a 3 comes out front, and I have nothing left over. So your final answer here is 5 square roots of 3 plus 3.
You do it as a.
Bro, we made that one
talking
talking
autumn,
autumn.
it was like making.
So you would add them.
Why would you not?
Okay. Why would I not have what?
Why would you not add three?
Because it's
Yeah.
parentheses. Why would you do parentheses?
Because these aren't like terms. This is like you have 5x plus 3.
Oh.
They're not the same terms. If that would have had the square root of 3 on it, yes, you would have had to put them together. Okay? So, good point. Those are not like terms.
Miss Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
can you send Holly Hedges to the office when she's leaving?
Bye.
Well, he thought he was leaving.
Have a nice break.
What did you tell me?
Okay,
let's
go.
It's definitely
Hasha.
Sorry. Bye, Harley. You call me over tonight, so I'm like, okay, definitely are, but alright, hope not. Okay, bye.
Says she doesn't like you.
See
Let
you
her go.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, party at your house?
this one.
Party at Jackie's. I mean, okay. So, same thing here. I need to distribute this to everything in here. That multiply. -6. Yes, you did. -6 square roots of 3. Okay? Careful. Because when I multiply here, this is -3 times 1, which makes this -3. You've got to multiply your coefficients first, and then square root of 18. Okay. Again, hold on. Can I speak to make sure everybody's on the same page before y'all jump down my throat on the next step? Are y'all just too smart?
No, because no.
Okay, so again, reiterating, multiplying square roots. We multiply the coefficients. So out front of this one, I've got a -3. Out front of this one, I have a 1. -3 times 1 gives me a -3, which is why this is now minus. Keep your square roots, and then 3 times 6 gives me 18. Okay, can this one on the left be simplified?
No.
No, but Travaria says I can take 18 and break it down, so let's do it. Break it down. 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 3, 3 and 1. Okay, so I've got a pair of 3s that come out front. So I need to multiply this by 3. No, it should still say negative. So -9 square roots of 2. The last thing you need to check, can I subtract these now? No. One's the square root of 3, one is the square root of 2. They are not the same terms, so I am finished. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun.
Hey, this
Dun.
next one got messed up.
This one's got you messed up?
Got messed up.
Like hardcore messed up?
Hardcore messed up.
Oh boy. Woo! Woo! Here we go. Holy cow. All right. This one's got Jackie all kinds of messed up. Does that mean me being loud is really starting to make me nervous?
Yes.
Take
You
some
guys want to
ibuprofen.
punch me in the face right now? Okay. What's my coefficient in front of the square root of 3? 1. If you want to write it, there is no rule against writing the 1s in front of this. So if the coefficient is not there, it is a 1. So when I distribute -3 to this first part, I get 1 times -5 square roots of 3 times 10 plus 1 times 1 square roots of 3 times 6 apparently everything in life is hilarious right now. Okay. Let's see if we can break down 30. We already know we can break down 18. We just did it. Okay, so we'll do it again, but let's see if we can break down 30. 30, I'm going to go 3 and 10. You can do 6 and 5 if you're doing the factor tree. 3 and 10, 2 and 5, 5 and 1. Do I have anything to circle? No. If I have nothing to circle, it's already simplified. There is nothing we can do with that. So that one stays. -5 square roots of 30. There's nothing I can do about that. Plus, we know if we break down 18, that was 2 and 9, 3 and 3, and 3 and 1. And I knew I could circle some 3s. So the 3 comes out front. There's nothing there besides a 1, so it's just a 3. Square roots of 2. They're not the same. We are finished. Okay, glue this in at the top of 114, and then I need you to leave some space because we're going to make up one more. The hardest one yet. Oh boy. Here we go. Oh snap. Oh snap. I got you all kinds of messed up. Bring it.
No, I think you got Tay messed up.
I got Tay messed up.
Look here. You okay, Tay?
Leave some space.
Hi, beautiful.
I wrote down your notes for you, sweetie.
Did you, bro?
Aw, sugar pie, honey bunch. You know that I love you. Yes.
Miss Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
can you send your name and years to the office for a moment?
Sure.
I really wanted them not to be calling these names just so we can get.
Right. He got all kinds of like cocky when they called Harley out. Like,
What do you want us to do? This in the corner?
up at the top, just up at the top.
So Ron, why are you in such a pissy mood today?
Right.
I'm making him angry.
It's spring break. Why would you be-
I'm making him angry.
I hope y'all ain't taking no pictures of me.
No.
Hey, boy, you got a big mark on your
You do,
forehead.
for real. She was asleep. Can't we see picture?
Y'all be tired. You know.
Party about your party.
Okay, now shut up, y'all, for real.
They rent their cars.
Okay. This is the last example that I would like to do. Uh-oh. A what?
I grew it in.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, ma'am.
Juice.
Are you?
Uh-huh.
It is the same thing.
No, it's not. All right, I added something else.
Wait, what are we doing?
A sneaky, sneaky.
Sneaky.
Sneaky, sneaky. Okay. So, here we go. Let's back up to what you already know before we do what you don't know. If I gave you 2x plus 4 times 3x minus 2, you distribute both. 2x times 3x. 2x times negative 2. 4 times 3x.
Oh my God.
4 times negative 2. And then combine like terms, and you finish 6x squared plus 8x minus 8.
Like your circles are perfect. Like I don't understand.
I'm just that good at what can I say?
You are.
And I just totally, did you see me get the marker hooked on my shirt?
I definitely did see that,
Sweet.
Smith.
Why do you have a blue? So all teachers pay $2 for Magento Pay?
This is just a special thing we worked with yesterday. and today or something.
She said,
I am.
That don't make no sense.
All right.
You should be able to pay.
So,
They make hella money.
Some people would.
I mean, if it's going for a good cause, why not?
Why not? Why not?
I think we should do it and then do a big scholarship at the end of the year for a senior.
But I don't like these seniors, so.
Oh, God.
Okay, so when we attack this one, attack.
I don't like attacking things.
2 has to multiply against 3. 2 times 3 is? Two also also has to multiply against negative square root of 12. So negative 2 square roots of 12. Oh, I lied. I need one more color.
Look at you.
I'm trying to get some. Okay, so I distributed the 2 through. Now I need to distribute this negative 7 through. Negative 7 times 3.
I got a question. How you get negative? That's a positive.
No, second,
She said negative.
because there's a negative in front of the, well.
What? But that's
No, it's not.
It's
We're not
seven.
even talking about the
Y'all
12.
confused.
You talking about the seven?
Why y'all confused for it? I'm confused. Okay, but she didn't mean that. We said obviously.
Saran, what was your question?
How you get the negative 7?
I'm sorry, if I said negative 7, that's not what I meant. Should have been 3 square roots of 7. Okay, 3 times the square root of 7. So if I said negative 3, let me apologize. That is not what I meant. Okay, are we all back on the same page now? Good.
I think some people are just dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, if I slip up and say something wrong, please, I mean, I'm not offended if you correct me. And I'd rather clarify it now than get down the road and y'all are like, but you said, no, clarify it now, it's okay. I'm not offended, I'm not angry, it's all good. I slip up, I'm human too. Okay, last one, the square root of 7 times negative square roots of 12. Negative square roots of 84. It's some kind of like yellowish, goldish something or other.
Well, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it looks like.
Okay, this looks like a whole freaking mess of what?
No, seriously.
Okay, so here we go. Can I simplify 6? No, it's 6. Okay, now I need to look at this one. Let's break down 12. 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
2 and 2. 2 again. And 1. Yeah. Okay.
Or what?
Okay, so it's square root, so I'm grouping my 2's. So I have a 2 that comes out front and multiplies against the negative 2 that I already have. Negative 4. Square roots, and I'm left with a 3. So there's that. Okay, Jackie, you said what? Okay, Jackie says, I can't simplify the square root of 7. It's just 7 times 1. There's nothing to circle. Bring it down.
Oh my God.
You went.
Bring it downtown. Okay. The last one I need to simplify is the square root of 84. So we got 2 and 42. 2 and 21. 7 and 3. 3 and 1.
Oh, on 12, I got 3. I got 3, 3, and 2.
No, it's 3, 2.
3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. Not 12.
I think you need to go back to
God, let me see what these 2 did.
Oh!
What'd you do?
I'm
That was
dead.
so funny.
That was dumb. I went 3.
Oh, 3 times 3 is 6 now, guys.
You.
I'm dead. Okay, so here's my 2's. So I bring a 2 out front and multiply it by the negative that's there. So negative 2, square root, and I'm left with a 7 and a 3, which gives me 21.
You're throwing out numbers now. I
Who's
went
this
down there.
stranger? This is my BFF.
Porter.
Don't look alike.
Porter.
This is the one that sells the yearbooks,
Student government, AP Lit.
everything. She does it all.
She looks like.
Yeah, she look like.
They look alike.
I
Exactly.
went down, I'm just saying, I went down there and informed Miss Henson over the squabble. What's the word?
Oh. Life happens.
My day is great. I have no more children and it's my break. She's got 30 more minutes with you. I am done with children.
She got.
Dang. I think
40.
she's trying to get on you.
It's 2:50. 40 more minutes. I said 30. 40 more minutes.
Okay, is there anything I can do from this?
No.
No, there's nothing to combine. You're finished. There's your answer. Hallelujah!
Does it feel like Friday?